Well, hey everyone, welcome to McLean Church. My name is Ben DeStefano, and we are really glad that you've joined us here today. Now, wherever you're watching us from or tuning in from, we want to encourage you to connect with us and let us know what's going on in your world, how we can be praying for you, and any needs that you may have. So take a minute today, click the Connect Card button online, or send us an email to info@mcleanchurch.org and let us know how we can be a help to you. Well, this is an exciting week here at McLean Church. We have something happening for everyone. The ladies, they're kicking off the summer with a Kona happy hour at The Gathering on Monday with music, yard games, a Kona Ice snow cone truck, and more. Bring a friend, bring a lawn chair, and get ready for a fun night starting at 6:30 p.m. on Monday. And not to be outdone, we have a special guys' night planned as well. We will meet for our favorites, food, fire, and fun on Tuesday evening, also at 6:30. Our teens from all of our locations and the community are invited to Tire Wars on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. Besides some crazy fun tire relays, there will be music, food, volleyball, and so much more. This is the first of many events we have planned for our teens this summer. All of these events will be held rain or shine here at our Edinboro location and are free and open to everyone. For our preschool and elementary kids, this is the last week to register for VBS. That's our virtual Bible school experience. Check this out.
Here, can you look at this? Or can you some of the script a little bit?
Yes,
Can you look at this?
I'll
No,
take
we really
a look.
need you to look at this though.
Just go ahead, set it down.
We
I'll
have
be
to make
right
some
with you.
changes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, Moses. You have a moment for the promo for McLean Church VBS 2021?
Oh, certainly, Stephen. Whatever you need.
Sir?
Oh, you mean now?
Yes.
Well, let me get into character. Thank you, darling. Hello, parents of elementary and pre-K aged children. We would like to take this time to invite you on an amazing adventure. Our church has put together an amazing 5-day program that your children can enjoy. It's going to be June 21st through 25th. You know, if you don't sign up right now, your children will be crying. So go to the internet immediately or use the McLean app and sign your child up immediately. That's called registration. You can do it. Do it now, and you will see some of the most amazing cinematography ever, such as this. Wasn't that spectacular? Don't wait, sign up today. And don't forget, on the 26th, Saturday, at 4 o'clock, come to McLean Church in Edinboro, where we will have an on-site, in-person extravaganza that your children will love. They will be able to stroll through the Israelite camps, fun, games, food. Remember, sign up today. And thank you.
So, like Moses said, go online and sign up this week. You don't want to miss this special family event. Well, that was a lot of information. If you missed any of the details, don't worry. Just go to our website, mcleanchurch.org, or use our mobile app or check us out on social media to stay up to date with everything happening this summer at McLean Church. Now, will you join me in prayer? God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this moment that we share together. I pray that as we worship you, our hearts would be united. It's in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
than anything I've tasted. I wanna know your heart. I wanna know your heart. So pull me a little closer, take me a little deeper. I wanna know your heart. I wanna know your heart. 'Cause your love is so much sweeter than anything I've tasted. I wanna know your heart. I wanna know your heart. I wanna know your heart. How great your love is for me. How great is your love. How great your love is for me. How great is your love. How great your love is for me. How great is your love. How great your love is for me. How great is your love. How great is your love. So pull me a little closer and take me a little deeper. I wanna know your heart. I wanna know your heart. 'Cause your love is so much stronger than anything I've faced. And I wanna know your heart. I wanna know your heart.
Matthew 16 says that when Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" "Well," they replied, "some say John the Baptist, some say Elijah, others say Jeremiah or one of the other prophets." Then he asked them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." Christ replied, "You are blessed, Simon, son of John, because my Father in heaven has revealed this to you. You did not learn this from any human being. Now I say to you that you are Peter, which means rock. And upon this rock I will build my church, and all the powers of hell will not conquer it." Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you, oh, we live for you.
Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are, and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Worthy of every song we could ever sing. Worthy of all the praise we could ever bring. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you, Jesus. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are, and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Jesus, you are worthy, exalted above all. God, you are in our day-to-day lives. You are in the quiet moments. You're in the very air that we breathe. God, we praise you. Praise you now. Praise you tomorrow. God, would you be with us so that we can praise you for the rest of our lives? God, would you make us like Peter, to show us how to build our lives on the rock and the knowledge you are God, that your Son is the Messiah. And I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation, and I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm
We are so thankful for your generous support of McLean Church and our vision to impact a region for Jesus Christ. It's easy to give online using our website or our McLean Church app. Just tap the Give button at the bottom. Again, thank you for your generosity.
Well, hey everybody, for the next 4 weeks, we're going back into the Old Testament book of Leviticus. We've been studying this book on and off through the first part of this year, and what a fascinating book. This ancient text that if you've ever tried to read through it before, you might find yourself saying, what in the world does this have to do with my present day Christian faith? What am I supposed to do with all these laws and regulations and procedures? How am I supposed to make sense of this? And yet, as we've tried to dive deeper into this book over the past few months, what we've seen is that in this ancient text, God is revealing himself in ways that are understandable and that make sense to the ancient group of Israelites that he was communicating to. God is using forms and practices that are understandable in this ancient Near Eastern culture to reveal himself to this group of ancient Israelites. And isn't this what God always does? God is always accommodating himself to the forms and the structures that we understand, that make sense to us, to teach us about himself and to teach us about life. So we know that this book opens up with God speaking from the tent of meeting. And remember, the tent of meeting connects us back to the book of Exodus and the whole Exodus story of the Israelites, which is really the prelude to the book of Leviticus. And as God is speaking from the tent of meeting or the tabernacle, the first thing he communicates to the ancient Israelites is the means by which they can approach him. So remember, we are in the ancient world. The setting of the book of Leviticus is probably somewhere around the year 1000 BCE or perhaps even earlier. The book is probably written later than that, but the setting of the book it's 3,000 years ago. And in the ancient world, we know people are very religious. We know that people believe in a lot of different deities. But the deities of the ancient world, they're as scary as they are comforting because they tend to be somewhat emotionally driven. They tend to be dramatic. They tend to be capricious. They tend to be jealous. They tend to hold grudges. And the big thing about religion in the ancient world and the deities of the ancient religious system in the ancient Near East is that you never really know where you stand with the gods. You never really know if you've done the right things, if you've done enough, if the gods are happy with you in a given day or if they're against you in a given day. You never really know how to get the gods on your side. And as this new God appears to the ancient Israelites, this new God who calls himself Yahweh or I am, this God is different. Because with this God, you can know. You can know where you stand with him. You can know how to approach him. You can know what he accepts. And so the first part of the book of Leviticus, the first 3 chapters, deals all with procedures or processes by which you can approach this new God at the tent of meeting when you want to have connection to Him. And again, in our present setting, this seems so elementary or even mundane, because most of us have grown up in a context where we believe you can talk to God freely, you can approach Him whenever you want or need. But in the ancient world, this is not the understanding of how the gods work. The gods are scary, and you dare not approach them unless you can approach them in a way that will be acceptable to them. And so again, this new God begins the book of Leviticus with three clear processes, three types of sacrifice that you can bring to the tent of meeting as a way of entering into communion with this God. And remember, we said that this ancient system of sacrifices, of killing animals and burning them on an altar, seems very unusual or peculiar to us in the present day. This is very commonplace in the ancient world. We're not sure exactly where the practice starts, but it's commonplace throughout ancient religious systems. And now this God of the Israelites, this new God, Yahweh, what does He do? He takes a system that's familiar to this ancient group of people, and He changes it and alters it in a way to reveal a dimension of Himself that is unique. This God is approachable. I can come to this God without fear, without apprehension. And you remember the other unique thing about these first three sacrifices? Remember, they're all voluntary. They're all voluntary. I don't have to do this. I don't have to approach this God. I don't have to connect or communicate with Him. I'm invited to do that if I want. How different this God is from the other ancient gods. Now, beginning today, we want to look at two more of these sacrifices. Remember, in chapters 1 through 7 of the book of Leviticus, there are 5 distinct sacrifices or processes by which God is to be approached. Again, the first 3 voluntary sacrifices. These last 2, Numbers 4 and 5, they're not voluntary, they're obligatory. These are the things you do or the practices you follow to make a wrong right. These last 2 sacrifices, these are the things you do. These are the rituals you follow when you need to make a wrong right. So, let me do this. Let me read a little bit from chapter 4. Then we're going to talk a whole bunch about what it means to do wrong, what the problem is when we do wrong, what the problem is that it creates in our own lives, and then we're going to talk about how revolutionary these processes are to right the wrongs that the ancient Israelites committed. So I'm going to read from chapter 4 of the book of Leviticus. I'm going to start with verses 1 and 2, and then we're going to jump to the middle of chapter 4, and I'll explain why we do that as we read. So Leviticus chapter 4, and I'll begin in verse 1. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the people of Israel, saying, when anyone sins unintentionally in any one of the Lord's commandments about the things not to be done, and does any one of them," and then you'll notice there's a colon here, and what's going to happen now is the author is going to go through specific groups of people who, if these particular groups of people sin against the Lord, do something unintentionally wrong, this is how each group is to make it right. So in verse 3, which I'm not going to read, but we start by talking about what happens if the anointed priest does something wrong. Then in verse 13, the author is going to talk about what to do if the whole group of Israelites, the whole community, does something wrong. In verse 22, the author is going to talk about what you do when one of the leaders of the people, when a ruler does something unintentionally wrong. And then in verse 27, where we're going to pick up reading again, it says, if any one of the ordinary people among you sins unintentionally in doing any one of the things that by the Lord's commandments ought not to be done and incurs guilt. So now we're talking about the ordinary people. We're talking about you and I, you and me. If any one of the ordinary people among you sins unintentionally in doing any one of the things that by the Lord's commandments ought not to be done and incurs guilt, when the sin that you have committed is made known to you, you shall bring a female goat without blemish as your offering for the sin that you have committed. You shall lay your hand on the head of the sin offering, and the sin offering shall be slaughtered at the place of the burnt offering. The priest shall take some of its blood with his finger and put it on the horns of the altar of the burnt offering, and he shall pour out the rest of its blood at the base of the altar. He shall remove all its fat, as the fat is removed from the offering of well-being, and the priest shall turn it into smoke on the altar for a pleasing odor to the Lord. Thus the priest shall make atonement on your behalf, and you shall be forgiven. Again, in verse 27, if any one of the ordinary people among you sins unintentionally, and then we have a whole process outlined for what that ordinary person is supposed to do. And at the end of the process, verse 31, you have the pronouncement, thus the priest shall make atonement on your behalf, and you shall be forgiven. This is how the ancient Israelites were to deal with sin. Now, sin is a very loaded word in terms of its theological usage and impact, in its terms of its history of usage within the church. And I'd like to suggest a working definition for this word as we work through the book of Leviticus. When the author of the book of Leviticus uses the word sin, he's talking, first of all, about violating the commandments that God has already given the ancient Israelites. So in your mind, go back to the book of Exodus, go back to the Ten Commandments, and then all the legislation that follows from the Ten Commandments through the rest of the book of Exodus. These commandments that God has given the ancient Israelites, when they are violated or not followed, the author of Leviticus is thinking of this as sin. Now, these commandments that God gives the ancient Israelites, these are not arbitrary rules, and it's so important to understand that, because often we have this notion of God that God has just kind of arbitrarily come up with a list of things we should or shouldn't do, and has arbitrarily put that out there, and we're supposed to follow it. The commands of God are so much deeper and richer than some arbitrary list of do's and don'ts. As God begins to give the ancient Israelites commandments, starting with the Ten Commandments, what is God doing? He's revealing to the ancient Israelites the principles by which life is to work in harmony with the creation order. Life is to work in harmony with the rest of the world, with the rest of the universe. The commands God reveals are instructions as to how life is designed to function so that the fullest experience of life can be achieved. And for the biblical authors, and particularly the author of the book of Leviticus, when he talks about sin, he's talking about actions that disrupt the harmony or the order of the universe. From my own personal experience of that order to the corporate experience of that order across a culture or across a community. So the Ten Commandments have at their core this idea of humanity being rightly aligned with the infinite principles of the universe that create harmony, or in ancient Jewish usage, create shalom, this sense of peace or well-being among all of God's creation. I want to follow the commands of God, not because they're some arbitrary list that I have to follow to keep God happy with me. I want to follow the commands of God because this becomes the richest, fullest experience of life. But here's what I know from my own experience. At times, I disrupt the harmony of life. At times, I disrupt the harmony of my own life, the harmony of the lives of the people around me. I at times disrupt the harmony of the universe because sometimes I don't follow the principles that God has revealed by which life in the world is to work. And it's interesting, as the book of Leviticus opens, that one of the key things the author wants to address is how can I fix that when I've compromised the harmony or order of life in the world? When I've violated these principles by which life is to work, how do I fix that? And you know, we need to think for a time about how significant of issue that is, because I think you'll agree with me that most of us have been raised with this idea that there are certain consequences in life that are irreversible. That there are some mistakes that you can possibly make that can't be fixed. And if this is true, life is really terrifying, because we're forced to live with this anxiousness of wondering, you know, today, did I make one of those unforgivable mistakes? And if I didn't make it today, might I make it tomorrow? And we know enough about our life experience to know that all too often we mess up unintentionally. We mess up without thinking about it, only to wake up the next morning and realize what a poor choice we've made, what a poor decision we've engaged in, what a terrible thing we've done, that by pure human standards will often seem unrightable. A funny story, when I was in high school, and this is going on 40 years ago now, I was involved in model legislature, and I'm not sure if that program still exists today, but back when I was in high school, it was a big deal. And one weekend a year, all the model legislature delegations from high schools across Pennsylvania they'd take over the state capital of Pennsylvania, and for a couple days in the Capitol buildings, we would conduct legislation. We would be the Pennsylvania Assembly, and there was a whole year-long lead up to people being elected to different positions in this process. And of course, I was elected chaplain of the House of Representatives, and so on this appointed weekend, it was my responsibility to lead an ecumenical worship service and to preach an ecumenical sermon. Now, I was 18 years old, and I thought I knew a lot of things, and I was particularly interested in Isaiah chapter 6 in that moment of time. And I had a dandy, couldn't fail sermon from Isaiah chapter 6 that I knew was the message I was supposed to bring to the statewide delegations gathered in unison in the Pennsylvania House. And so on that Sunday morning, I ascended to the podium and I preached my sermon entitled, "The 6 Sins of Israel," from Isaiah chapter 6. It was powerful, it was convicting. I showed how the mistakes of ancient Israel would spur us all on to better life and living in the present day as we learned from this nation's negative example. Coming out of the dais that day, I felt like I had achieved it, like my peers were all undoubtedly in awe at my prowess at preaching, only to later learn that one of the largest delegations present for this ecumenical service of worship was a delegation from a Jewish high school who I subjected to 30 minutes of preaching on the 6 sins of Israel. What was I thinking? I wasn't thinking. And when I found out about it and the appropriate offense they had taken at the arrogance with which I had preached the text, there was nothing I could do about it. The moment was gone. The assembly was no longer convened. The delegations had departed for home. And there I was left with an awareness that I had unintentionally done something horrifically wrong. What a faux pas. And there was no way for me to make it right. That's humorous now, 4 decades later. But it's not humorous when I wake up in the morning and I realize that a choice I made, an action I took, a word I spoke in the previous day had disrupted the harmony of God's creation order in my life or in the life of others. And seemingly, there exists no way for me to make that right. And it's interesting to me that the author talks about these unintentional sins. We're going to probably say more about sin next week, but don't you think at the core behind this idea is really the fact that aren't all of our sins, aren't all of our errors unintentional at some level? I mean, maybe there are some people who do this, but I don't think most of us get up in the morning and say, today I want to make sure I lie. Or, today, before it hits 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I want to make sure that I use my words to hurt somebody. Or today as I start this day, my goal is to really treat someone unjustly. Today my goal or objective is to engage in a habit or a practice that will be really destructive to me. I don't think anybody sets out to sin intentionally. I think what happens is life happens, and in the moment we find ourselves doing things we hadn't intended to do, but at some point in the future, looking back, we say, oh, what have I done? And in our purely human culture, so many of the messages say to us, when you have done that thing, there may be no way to fix it. There may be no way to reverse it. The things you said, the things you did, the choices you made, you may have to forever live with the guilt and shame and consequence of that. And isn't it sad that sometimes in the church we even like to sort of preach that? Because if we can keep people in fear of their choices, we have power over their behaviors. But isn't it fascinating that this ancient text opens up, chapter 4, by the time we hit chapter 4, of God saying, let me tell you how you make a wrong right. Let me tell you how you fix the mistakes you've made. Because in the human experience, you're going to make mistakes. But here's the thing about this new God who's revealing himself to the ancient people of Israel. With this new God, mistakes are forgivable and mistakes are redeemable. Mistakes are forgivable and mistakes are redeemable. And friends, is that not the core of the message of Jesus? 1,000 years after the book of the setting of Leviticus, Jesus will embody the revelation of this God who does what? Who forgives and restores. Nothing is unredeemable. Nothing is unforgivable. This is the God who can right our wrongs. And boy, if that doesn't speak deeply to the heart of each of us who's trying to live life authentically, but we continue to run up against the wall of our humanity, where we know what we want to do, but we're regularly faced with the reality that we've unintentionally done what we didn't want to do. And waking up the next morning faced with that reality, we wonder what can change it. And the God who reveals himself in this biblical record says, I'm the God who can change it. And for the ancient Israelites, the ritual that's prescribed will be the ritual that transforms a wrong into right. The ritual by which the ancient Israelites can be forgiven. Now here's the deal. Next week, we're going to talk about the power of ritual. Because it's not these specific practices that are significant, it's the ritual itself that is significant. That As people, we need concrete forms and practices that embody the reality of God and His kingdom to us. And this was the practice, this practice of sacrifice outlined in chapters 4 and 5 that became the ancient ritual by which the Israelites could know this reversal of consequence, this reversal of sin, this righting of a wrong. The rituals have changed over time. It's not the specifics that are important, as we're going to see next week. It's the practice that is critical. For today, here's the takeaway. All of us have regrets, have things in life that we wish we would have done differently, wish we wouldn't have done at all, wish we could do over. Again, the pure human culture of our day tells us that if you're going to take the wrong actions seriously, and this is important, if we're going to take the wrong actions seriously, then we have to resign ourselves to living all of our life with the consequence and guilt of those choices and actions. Not with this God. With this God, there is forgiveness. With this God, there is renewal. With this God, there is no fatal flaw. This is the God who can take our wrongs and make them right.
These pieces broken and scattered, in mercy gathered and mended whole, empty-handed but not forsaken. I've been set free, I've been set free. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Oh, I once was lost, but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see. Oh, I can see you now. I can see the love in your eyes, laying yourself down, raising up the broken to life. You take our failures, you take our weakness, you set your treasure in jars of clay. So take this heart, Lord, I'll be your vessel, the world to see your life in me. Oh, amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. can see the love in your eyes, laying yourself down, raising up the broken to life.
God, I praise you that you pick us up from the ashes. God, from the crumbled mess of our lives. God, when we think that all hope is lost, we turn to your Son and his death and resurrection. God, through him you pick us up and you make us whole. You rebuild us into something better than ever before. God, for your glory, for your name's sake,